Okay.
So just guessing there.
I'd start, Owen, and I'll just check the live stream and I'll let you know if there's a problem, but I would start.
That's lovely. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. Welcome everybody to the North Essex Parking Partnership Joint Committee meeting of October, for October 2020. Nice to see we've got a lot of attendees, and also welcome to the couple of people who are likely to make approaches to us with the Have Your Say. So this is being broadcast live over the YouTube channel. It will be available to watch afterwards. I think everybody has been briefed, but so that other members of the public who may be listening or watching are aware, with the exception of the committee clerk, can we have everybody muted, please, unless they're invited to speak. It also pops on bandwidth and interruptions, or rather reduces interruptions. I will be asking for each item of business to be presented, and then ask members of the committee to indicate very clearly if they wish to ask a question or make a comment. You can use your hand in the participants bit. You can put your hand up. Please try and remember to put your hand down. I will sometimes be asking people whether they have got an old hand or they still want to speak, if it's later on in the meeting. And we will be asking probably for a show of hands amongst the elected members if there's anything that we have to specifically vote on. If anybody loses connection to the meeting, then we may pause to allow that member to rejoin. But so far we've been sitting on here for 10 minutes and it seems that there's very good connection. If we are busy and we're continuing on the meeting after 2:30, then we may have a break if we feel we need to. Depends how close we are to the end. So what we will do is, as we go through the meeting, if everybody can explain who they are and the various different members, so each participant confirm their name and that they're happy for the procedures of the meeting. Are we needing to go through every single one of these, Owen? We've got lots of people and we've got names in front of us, so we do know who everybody is.
Generally speaking, we just do a quick run through of the committee members to give their name, the authority that they represent, and then we say that there are officers who will contribute at points during the meeting who will introduce themselves at those points.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you very much. Well, I'm Councillor Robert Mitchell and I'm the Deputy Cabinet Member for Highways and Infrastructure at Essex County Council. Councillor Lilly.
Yeah, Councillor Mike Lilly, I'm the representative for Colchester Borough Council.
And Councillor Avey. You're muted.
Mike Danvers, Harlow, portfolio holder for finance.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Van Dalken.
Councillor Richard Van Dalken, Braintree District Council.
And Councillor Avey.
Hi, Councillor Nigel Avey, Epping Forest District Council.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. So we have no apologies yet, unless Linda can confirm that we've got an apology. Sorry, we have one apology actually from Councillor Talbot, whose wife has been taken to hospital. So I understand that was a couple of hours ago. Linda Howells, if you could possibly just let us know whether you've managed to get through to Councillor Eek.
I haven't managed to get through to him yet. I've got various people working on it.
Fingers in pies. That's brilliant. Okay, well we'll hold that for the moment. Can we just quickly ask? I have a declaration of interest to make. It's in relation to item 6 and a specific application which ends in 4475. One of the Braintree schemes, because I happen to live in Fearing, which is next door to Kelvedon, and was and helped the parish council put forward, or I proposed the scheme that is being proposed, although the decision will be made by Braintree member. And during that period, I will relinquish the chair to, the chairmanship to the Deputy Chairman, Councillor Lilly from Colchester, and then when that's decided, I'll come back. Any other declarations of interest? No. Okay, so we will move on to the have your say, and we've got Dr. Andrew Fejos talking about the scheme in Manor Road. So, Dr. Fejos, if you've got, if you can deal with the 3 minutes, which Owen has briefed you about before, then we'll hand the floor to you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Shall I share my screen, or shall I try to share my screen, or?
Right.
Okay.
I think Richard has it for you there.
Thank you. Okay, let me just set my timer.
Yep, not a problem.
Thank you. So first of all, thank you very much for for giving us this floor to talk about our application. As you know, our application has been recommended for rejection, and we would like to ask you to reconsider that option and to approve at least part of it. It is recommended for rejection partially, primarily because we don't have the residents' consent. And in our case, unfortunately, it is impossible to obtain the consent because we were faced with abuse, and generally just residents are quite reluctant to talk about any compromises. On the other hand, the council or the committee has very broad discretion to decide, and they can just act as what is fair and reasonable under the circumstances. And we believe that is possible to achieve by weighing up the pros and cons, and with our interest with the interest of residents objectively by yourselves as independent third parties. Sorry, can you just go back to the previous one? In our case, it's not just a mere inconvenience that we have that parking in front of our flat or house. As you can see on the picture, it causes serious damage to the bricks, and the fumes and the lack of light is damaging for health, especially when we talk about vulnerable people. But more essentially, we recently discovered that actually that window is one of the only potential fire exit from the house. As you can see, cars can fully block the window, and if the way that the flat is designed, if there is a fire in the middle of the flat, for example, in the kitchen, which is in the middle, and if someone sleeps in the bedroom, then that person is going to be trapped in the house because someone parked in front of the window and completely blocked the exit from it. The next one, please. When we bought the house, we couldn't anticipate that people are going to park very close to the wall. Now there's a small curb, so they can't go as close anymore. But still, they are quite parking just at the edge. And also, when we bought the house, we couldn't anticipate that big lorries are going to park in front of the house because we thought that this is a residential area, and then there will be only residential cars. So we would like you to consider maybe replacing these 2 spaces in front of our flat with 5 or 6 spaces that you can see along the road. 5 or 6 spaces that there is no residential house that you can find clearly on the other side of the same road. Or we are also flexible, and for example, we would agree, for example, to restrict parking in front of our house, for example, by restricting the size of the vehicles or restricting times when people can park in front of our house. So I would urge you really to think about this, because we really don't know what to do without your help. How can we secure essential fire escape from the flat if someone can park completely blocking our exit? We also have children. Our children are also sleeping in that room.
That's 3 minutes.
We are really scared. Yes, please, the last one. We are really scared. The last slide, please. We are really scared what to do, because as you can see on the last picture, you see that it's possible to completely block the exit. So please just think, what would you do in my situation? If you want to protect your family, what can you do without the help of yourselves? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think probably the answer to this is to go to Trevor. Are you happy to answer this, Trevor? Or more importantly, we'll have some, are there any comments or points to be made by the members? Anybody got any issues there? Councillor Lilly.
Thank you, Chair. As I was the person who sort of rejected this application, mainly because that in situations like this, it's a park and permanent area in a small area with lots of terrace cottages. As you know, it's a very small road, and that the only parking they have available is for these permits and the bays there, and they've been there for some time. So in these cases, we'd like to stick to the fact that if something is going to change, then we want to see the majority of the residents in the street who will affect as well, that they support taking away of parking areas. And unfortunately, you haven't shown that you've got at least the 75% support in a road, because if we was to remove these, you'd be guaranteed that all the rest of those residents will be up in arms and of course more trouble. This is why we have the support of the street, basically, because it's a neighborhood, so everybody lives there, so they should all have the say in exactly how it goes on. So whether it's, I understand the problems that you have in your property, but then it's also unfair to other residents that we take away spots that they will probably use. You've suggested that the park and further up the road could be moved there, but most of those in the industrial area, and they have vans and lorries down there, and it's such a narrow street, and there's more front doors on the street that we couldn't possibly do that. So I'm going to check it out. But I was down there yesterday. Actually, I was down there yesterday and having a look, and the road opposite Manor Road, where the units are, we couldn't actually put them in there because it's double yellowed on both sides. So we would then ask all those residents in that street if they supported having bays put in, because we can't just put them in willy-nilly. We like to have the support of the residents. So you can see where we are. If you get that support of all your residents in that neighbourhood, then we will look at it again the following for next year. I'm afraid that's all I can say on the matter. I'm sorry about the situation, but I think the way we did it is fair to everybody, and I understand the predicament that you're in.
I've got a couple of questions, actually. That's okay. Thank you very much, Councillor Lilly. Can you tell me when was the curb installed? So I notice your picture that you've got in the thing is showing flowers growing in there, and I walked along there yesterday, and I noticed there's a concrete curb.
About 10 days ago, in order to prevent dampness entering, the little gully which was there was filled in. We actually thought that the builders would be able to do it just by flattening it out, and we were actually surprised that it was raised. But it doesn't.
Can I ask who did the curbing?
A building firm that my mother-in-law employed.
Right. Do you know that if they had a permit to work in the highway?
Well, we asked the council for restrictions, for cone restrictions, so we certainly informed the council that the work was going to be done.
That's not the same as getting permission from the highway authority to work on the highway.
Does it count that part of, can I just say, we certainly weren't aware that that was part of the highway, because that was an unkept gully that we're actually having a lawyer's question whether it was not part of the highway, but it was an unkept gully that nobody from the council had ever maintained, and in fact my mother-in-law was maintaining.
So we thought it's our property.
No, it's just a question, really, because I noticed that it wasn't the same as the picture in the other.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Can I ask Trevor if there is any, do we think that there would be any solution that would work? And one of the observations that I made when I walked down there yesterday is that the road to the west that goes down towards the main road is a narrower road. There are double yellow lines at the end of that road to protect that junction so that the turning circles for other vehicles to get down that one-way road is possible. So that end is not possible to extend. The other end of the road, where there's a crossroads, effectively, is similar, with junction protection markings to stop people parking too close to the junction. And I have had a suggestion that maybe an H-bar could be possibly installed outside that area, which would discourage some, but not all, because actually in legal terms, it wouldn't get enforced. You also have a risk if something is put in to remove the parking from that particular area. The other residents you've already had abuse from, I understand, which is not acceptable. I totally agree. You've got a little bit of a risk for yourselves. I would be very unfortunate to learn that other things have happened as a result of it, because there isn't enough parking for everybody anyway along that road, and other people are parking in other places as well. So to remove 2 spaces, I think would be problematic. I would agree completely with Councillor Lilly that the issue needs support. It doesn't necessarily, or it might not need 75% support, but it needs to have a modicum of support. And currently, I don't believe that you have any real support from the residents opposite. Trevor, have you got any option you think might be able to work in law? Because we can't go and restrict the vehicles to a certain size unless you put in a weight restriction type thing, but that's very difficult to enforce. So there is no guarantee that there won't be larger vehicles along there. And I'm not a highways expert. I've learnt a lot since doing this job and the other ones. But Trevor, could you advise as to whether there might be any sort of solution?
I think the only solution is to remove the parking, but the problems that both Councillor Lilly and yourself have explained about the support are the reasons why it hasn't been recommended. It's an area where there is a shortfall of on-street parking, so it's going to be very difficult to get support from other residents to take parking out.
I'm afraid, yeah, I would concur with that. I think we're going to have to, if we're going to discuss this any further, this will need to be taken offline, and we will look more closely into it. But we are not, I don't think there's anybody, is there anybody in favour of going further down this route within the elected members? And I'm presuming that isn't. Councillor Eek, welcome to us. You're muted.
Yes, apologies, having internet problems, so I'm slightly late. And I did receive an email on this subject yesterday, but I've only just got back from annual leave, so I haven't had an opportunity to see it. But just on a cursory glance over it, it does appear that there are other options which could be explored, and I think we ought to do that in fairness to the applicants here, just to ensure that we're not missing anything. So I would welcome officers going to have a look and perhaps reviewing the situation to see if there are any other alternatives.
Which is what I'm effectively suggesting, to see if there are. I don't think it needs to, it will be falling in. We need to follow, if Councillor Lilly and Colchester are going to reject this, then I would suggest that it needs polish before it comes back again. And looking at the options completely. There is, of course, from a highway point of view, if that house was being built nowadays, they wouldn't be allowed to put a window onto the highway anyway. So it's not something we find very often. So that is, that's all we can deal with for the moment, I'm afraid.
Can we have the minute of response?
Okay.
Okay, so I appreciate to a point most of the points that were made, but I'm unclear about one or two things. I'm unclear about this argument about the double yellow lines further along the road. I mean, I can see that there may be technicalities about the procedural aspect of changing that. I don't see why that piece of road isn't just as broad, and there are no domestic windows there, and there seemed to me to be space that wouldn't be causing anything like the sort of obstruction to any type of window to have at least 2 or 3 spaces there. That's one point. Now, the second point, which is about the options and the restricted amount of parking. I understand that, but one of the things that we find is, I'm sorry to say, a deep well of unreasonableness in relation to those 2 parking spaces. We are finding people parking there with big vehicles when there are patently plenty of other spots available. I don't know if it's, sorry?
Sorry, that's
Afraid
a
we're
minute.
going to have to take this
Okay.
offline, sir, and we'll have to do this separately.
Okay.
I understand you've got problems down there, and I do sympathise, but we need to get on with the rest of the meeting, I'm afraid.
Sure.
We'll look into this via other methods. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Jones, welcome to the meeting. Where's he gone? There he is. Welcome. And you wanting to talk about the one in Godfrey Way at Great Dunmow?
Yes, Chair. Thank you very much for letting me speak. And I'll also thank the rest of the members who have an extremely full agenda today. So I'm not going to take my full 3 minutes. I'm going to be extremely quick. I'm here actually on behalf of the residents that applied. I'll also remind the committee that Great Dunmow Town Council have supported this scheme and the application. And really, just to give a quick brief on actually what the problem is. As we're well aware, there's never enough parking spaces anywhere. And what we're talking about is cars that are parking on both sides of the road on Godfrey Way with the junction of the causeway. Now, Godfrey Way's junction is quite wide. It's one of the widest junctions I've ever seen, but with cars parked either side, what is happening is that residents who have plenty of off-street parking are having to avoid those people that have decided to temporarily park their cars at the bottom of Godfrey Way. This results in the fact that people have to drive on the wrong side of the road, in whole or in part. And while the residents have been monitoring this situation, they've seen people actually having to drive on the curbs, on the pavements, and bump the curbs in order to be able to make their way around oncoming vehicles. Now, I can't say I condone bad driving behaviour. We're all responsible for how we drive. But the problem is exacerbated by the restrictions caused by people parking either side of the road. And so as I say, I don't condone essentially the bad driving and not giving way to each other. But I think by putting parking restrictions in, which I also note that this scheme has been provisionally approved, or for approval, but it's obviously pending this committee's decision, that actually having the parking restrictions will prevent the issue occurring in the first place. And residents and school children who use the route through Godfrey Way to either cycle or walk to school would not be obstructed by people parking either side of the road and potentially causing people to drive or bump the curb in order to avoid oncoming vehicles. Now, part way down Godfrey Way, which actually probably even is worse, is that it's kind of a blind bend. So anybody coming round that, leaving the estate, won't see somebody in the wrong side of the road until you're nearly on top of it. But thank you for your time, members committee and chair. That's all I've got to really say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's in support, obviously, of the Dunmow scheme. So that will be decided by Dunmow. But I see your point. I've had a look around the Google Maps, but more importantly, the Google Street View around there. It doesn't actually show much of what you're saying, but that doesn't mean to say, of course, that it's up to date or that people are any gentler in the way that they park. We have problems of parking across the country where there is little space, and also there are, unfortunately, some people who are a little bit more parochial about their patch and wanting to force everybody else out of it when it's perfectly legal. So that's quite understood. Thank you very much indeed. Okay, we'll come to that a little bit later on in the meeting. We need to have a general decision about the minutes of last meeting. And I'm trying to get it onto my other screen and just double check that we have got no issues with that. Sorry about this, it's dropped off. I had it before, but has anybody got any points to make about the minutes of the last meeting?
I think Councillor Danvers has his hands raised.
Thank you very much. Councillor Danvers, if you'd like to make a point.
My only observation, as you know, I tell you the first meeting last time, is that councillors aren't necessarily identified in the minutes. It simply says a member said, a member referred to, and I would have thought really, if it's possible, I think the member of the committee should be identified. It's just an observation.
Okay. Just trying to find the minutes myself. There we go, 25th of June. Right, I'm going to go through each of the, well, I would try to, but I haven't got enough screens here. Sorry about this. That was on there earlier on. Find it in this one. Apologies for the delay. Right, there we go. Sorry, I've got a slow second computer. Wake up, you. I could ask, I'm hoping that everybody has read the minutes. I could find nothing wrong with them. Can I have any hands for anybody who wishes to dispute any part of the minutes? Otherwise, we'll pass them as they sit in the agenda. Councillor Van Dalken, you're the only one we can't see at the moment.
Mr. Chairman, would you like me just to quickly run through members by name, just to get a quick confirmation everyone's happy?
Yeah, okay, and a waved hand is adequate, or a thumbs up if your
that should be fine.
Video is showing. So they're all right by me.
That's great. So Councillor Avey. Aye. Councillor Danvers.
Agreed.
Agreed. Councillor Eek.
Agreed.
Agreed. Councillor Lilly.
Agreed.
Agreed. And Councillor Van Dalken. Sorry, you're on mute at the moment.
Agreed.
That's lovely, thank you.
Okay, that's great. Let me hand over then to the minutes for the meeting on the 25th of June are agreed. Trevor, your main spot. This is the highlight of the year. You'd like to go through the technical report, please.
Thank you. As Councillor Mitchell has said, it is the meeting one time in the year when we approve schemes to be advertised next year. So in the report in front of you, you'll find all of the proposals that we have by district. Reports have been sent out by Shane to the partner authorities, the client officers and councillors, and we've had provisional decisions back. There's a few more than this year than in previous years, but that's because weight and restrictions on bends don't count as a one of the 6 this year. So it's hopefully there's no surprises there for anybody and everyone agrees with what's written down. Following on from that, the report goes on to list the works that have been completed by the technical team this year. That bit's just for an update to show what we have done. Apart from that, I haven't got much else to add to the report.
Thank you very much. Okay, that's just, now it's found it. Okay, so the first one we're going to look at is the Uttlesford schemes. So if that could be put forward. Are officers going to present this, or Councillor, would you like to propose the schemes that you're wishing to approve?
I'm more than thank you, Chair. I'm more than happy to propose them. It depends how much detail you want to go into. If you want to go into huge amounts of detail, then I'll defer to Linda Howes, the officer responsible. The first one is Woodlands Park in Great Dunmow.
Just quickly, if I may, if you're happy to approve them as they are and as they are laid out in the agenda, then that's fine. I don't think there's anything else that goes with it. We've had support for one of them, encouraging support, and the other ones, if it is very much up to the partner authority to say, yes, that we'd like these schemes to go ahead. Of course, this is part of the overall way that we've been doing things for a few years now, on the basis, and this is a reminder, as a generic reminder, not specifically to us, but by any means, that we try to get schemes looked at throughout the year, but actually getting them in before the end of July, and that's why we have a deadline, so that we can move forward and officers have time before the October meeting when we decide about it to get the general discussion that's working around these schemes to be considered, and then it puts them into a condition that they're all uniform and scored, etc., as everybody will be, well, I hope everybody is aware, and they can be discussed internally at each of the partner authorities before being put forward to the Joint Committee in October, which then gives time for the officers to design it properly. There's no point in designing a whole load of schemes that aren't going to get approved. That's why we do the approval. Now, it gets designed in the winter months when we don't do linings very much, if at all, because it's very difficult to stick them down when it's wet. And we look at the lining season in the summer, but they can be designed in the winter. They can be advertised in the late winter, early spring, and then come April, May, June, we can paint the roads all very merrily and get the appropriate signs put up. And that's why there is the sequence that runs, and it can run throughout the year and people can be updated by it. And then obviously come this sort of time of year, the decision can be made by the appropriate partner authority. So we're very happy that if you've gone through that process, of course, and you're happy to say yes to the schemes that are being approved, and obviously no to the rejections ones, then we can happy to receive it as it is. Thank you.
Okay, on that basis, then the Uttlesford ones, we have discussed them, both Linda and myself, so we are presenting these as noted there.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I've got Councillor Danvers' hands raised.
Yes, Councillor Danvers.
If we're making general observations at the beginning, sorry, I understand the process, but the thing is that it's kind of like Topsy. We've all got our priorities and so on, but equally in certainly in Harlow, there are minor things which could make people's lives a bit easier, that historically there have been yellow lines, and quite frankly, they could be taken out. I don't know if we actually have a procedure where we could actually review one or two areas and simply say, we don't really need these road traffic orders anymore.
Thank you very much. I think it's effectively part of the same procedure, is it not, Trevor? Because the consideration is to look at the efficacy of systems. If for one reason or another, there is no requirement for double yellows or any other scheme, then it can be fine-tuned, and I will be putting forward, I'm hoping to be putting forward one in the not too distant future, but for next year, obviously. That is basically recognising that parking has changed, and we've discussed it before at these meetings, that the parking and COVID has caused greater change and caused us to focus even more on some of the schemes that we have in place and probably aren't working properly. So we will be looking at changing some of these things over the coming years, I would suggest. So if that's Uttlesford, I'm now going to, and there are 5 schemes I note to approve in Uttlesford, 1 deferred and another 1 rejected. I am going to hand over the chairmanship to Councillor Lilly in order to discuss the Braintree schemes.
Mr. Chairman, just to get a bit of information on how you'd like to handle this, would you like us to go through all of the schemes from the different local authorities and then vote at the end en bloc to approve them?
I'm happy that we don't need to vote as such unless there's dissent about something. In most cases, if everybody is happy and Uttlesford are happy with the Uttlesford schemes, then as far as we're concerned, it's not necessary to vote. It's only if there's dissent. And if anybody's wanting to talk about any of the Uttlesford schemes, feel free. But I think if Councillor Eek, as the Uttlesford partner, is happy and they've already been discussed, then that is an Uttlesford matter, really.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's great.
Happy with that.
Yeah.
As far as the Braintree schemes go, though, I'm going to dip out and let Councillor Lilly deal with it. And
oh, sorry.
sorry, I think we have to suspend. Do we have to suspend?
Yes, we'll put you briefly into the waiting room for these meetings. I've just received advice though that formal votes should be taken just to rubber stamp the approval for the recommendations as they stand.
Okay, well, let's go for a formal vote for the Uttlesford schemes as proposed by Councillor Eek.
Apologies. If everyone raised their hands for yes, right, I take that as a unanimous vote to approve from the members. Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
I'll let you do the waiting bit. The waiting.
Yes, I'll add you to the waiting room now. So there we go. So Councillor Mitchell's now left the meeting temporarily. He's in the waiting room, and I'll pass over to Councillor Lilly, who'll chair for this this part of the meeting.
Oh, thank you, Owen, and members. So we're on to the Braintree applications. So if the rep from Braintree is happy with those and he wants to just do en bloc, then we can move on to the vote and vote those through. If anyone's got no objections. Councillor Durkin. Dolkin, sorry.
I'm sorry. Yeah, we do have 5 applications, and which have been approved by or agreed by myself and our officers, Samir, and 2 of them relate to the Kelvedon that the chairman was mentioning, to a long overdue introduction of some restrictions on what gets to be quite a clogged road. So we're very happy with these, and I have no further comment.
Okay, thank you, Richard. That's very good. So if we can have a show of hands, please, for the Braintree applications.
Oh, I've got Councillor Danvers, you've raised your hand. Was that also? That's okay. So I make it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 votes to approve those recommendations.
Thank you, Owen, and my short power grab is over. So we'll invite Councillor Mitchell back in, and he can take over as chair.
That's great. Thanks, thanks, Councillor Lilly. I'll readmit Councillor Mitchell, so he should hopefully join us in the next few seconds. There we go. Welcome back, Councillor Mitchell. Councillor Lilly's just led us through the vote. So the Braintree recommendations have all been approved by the committee. Oh, you're currently on mute again, sorry.
Doesn't bring you back in the way you expects you to. I'm not used to that. Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Danvers, would you like to run us through the Harlow schemes that you wish to approve?
Yes, primarily it was school safety. As you can see, almost all of them are actually restrictions outside of schools. and that was our basic rationale. So that's it.
Okay, thank you very much. I can just like to ask a question of Trevor, please. Are we looking at, is this zigzags or is this reds?
We'll probably move towards double reds now. That's what we were going to do as a organisation. Certainly, that's what we're looking at to do outside schools now.
Yeah. Okay. And if for those who are unaware, that the red option is allowed to be enforced with the ParkSafe, sorry, not with the ParkSafe, but both with the ParkSafe vehicle and with the CCTV cameras that we are fitting. And in fact, I believe they're being fitted today in Winstry Road in Colchester, where there are something like 5 schools on the one road and a number of problems. So we will be very much testing the cameras in that particular area. But it makes it easier to enforce things. It's also cheaper to replace than zigzags, than the yellow zigzags that people are familiar with. And it's also pretty blooming obvious that you're not meant to park there. But it means effectively the same sort of thing as the yellow zigzags. Correct me if I'm wrong, Trevor, but give me a thumbs up if I'm right. Thank you. Okay, so can we have a vote on those schemes just to confirm Councillor Danvers what he would like to be looking at, please? Just a hand.
I'll make that
very much. That's unanimous. And we move on to Councillor Lilly and Colchester schemes.
Oh yeah, thank you, Chairman. And it looks like we've got loads, but most of these are junction protection, so that falls under the pre-scheme, so not in our 6 applications. So we're quite happy with the ones that we have approved. Obviously, Manor Road is in there. If the couple can get their support, we'll definitely look at it again because it is a thorny issue, as we explained. But and I'll make contact with the couple afterwards, and perhaps we can have a one-to-one conversation about that, how we do things. So yeah, I'm happy with all the applications we've got. Thank you, Chair.
Proposed schemes. Thank you.
The scheme, sorry.
If everybody is happy with that, if the members are happy with that, can we just have a show of hands, please, with the Colchester schemes?
I'll make that unanimous, Mr. Chairman.
I'm presuming, yes, thank you. That's sprung up.
last minute, I think.
A long piece of string on that one, with a long piece of elastic, I think.
I think you pulled it and shot up straight away.
Thank you very much. So that's unanimous on those. And just as a reminder that was made that where we're looking at doing junction protection markings that help people get a decent view when they're trying to get around a corner. And all they're doing is reminding those people who've not bothered to look at their highway code for the last 40 years or ever, that you need to provide space of 10 metres either side of the apex of a junction so that people can have decent view to get in or out of that junction. It is part of the highway code, but we're having to put in double yellow lines because we can't enforce against it otherwise, which is the frustration that we have across the board. Right, we're looking at tendering now in lieu of their member who is looking after his wife, quite understandably. Ian Taylor, would you like to join us for pointing out of which schemes? Welcome, Ian.
Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. Yes, as you can see, the schemes are there. Councillor Talbot has approved them. They've been discussed at length with Trevor and Shane and the rest of the team, and we're more than happy to put those forward. There are a couple of extras, just as Councillor Lilly said, because of junction protection or them being residents parking. And just to thank Trevor's team for the work they do all year. They are excellent. We've worked in parking for a long time. Having the TROs is the most important thing. Most motorists comply. So the enforcement side, which gets all the publicity, really is just an extra. Most people comply with regulations, so it's very important to have them, and they do a brilliant job.
Thank you very much. So for the members, I'm very happy to support that, and the theoretical decision, so not theoretical, the actual decision of Councillor Talbot, who can't be with us. So can we have a show of hands for those people who approve, everybody approving the tendering schemes, please? That's unanimous as well. That's very good.
Unanimous.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right, and last but by no means least is Epping Forest.
Seems a bit like the Eurovision Song Contest, doesn't it? Thank you, Chairman. Well, the schemes are in front of you, which we've discussed. Happy to put them forward. I'll give the officers a chance to come in here. I don't know if Kim or James want to add anything, but ask the committee to approve them.
Thank you, Councillor Avey. Thank you, Chairman. Just to echo what Ian said, all of the great work that Trevor and the team do. We do have more schemes than the 6, but as the Chairman knows, a lot of them have been discussed with the TRO team, and they are the ones which don't take the allocated slot. They're either RPZs or schemes that are officer delegation. So would really support Councillor Avey's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, happy to support those, including the other numbers. Epping have are much more densely populated pretty much than everybody else, and also have the issues that are brought in from outside, which I think most of us are aware of. As I say, brought in from outside, that's effectively commuters trying to get onto the underground rather than use the train, which is significantly more expensive. And it makes for a great deal of difficulty in the Epping Forest district when dealing with parking, both enforcing it and putting in new schemes. It would be good, however, if you could possibly find a way, if Epping could find a way to reduce some of the number of deferred ones, because I'm also aware that quite a lot of those have been there for a while. We have had this before. It needs a little bit of a decision process of moving them out of the way, because we won't get them all done in the next 5 years otherwise, if there's nothing else comes forward, and I'm sure there will be. But to support Councillor Avey and the schemes that they would like to approve, can we have another show of hands, please? Councillor Avey, thank you very much. Thank you, sir.
I make that unanimous, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, me too. So we are there. So Trevor, would you like to continue with the list of schemes completed in 2020? And then I've got some other comments as well that go with those. Thanks.
Okay, the second part of the report is just for information to give an update to members on what we've been doing in the last year and where we are. Considering the year we've had with the virus and everything, we have done what I think is an awful lot of work, and Shane and the team have really put the effort in this year. I think that shows in the list that we can put towards you. Apart from that, item 4 just talks about some car park orders we've done. I've done a bit for Epping Forest and Colchester. And I think that's it, really.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I would very much like to reiterate for those people who have been directly involved, and I've made my business to be directly involved with any scheme that I've had anything to do with. Shane and Trevor between them and the rest of the team are a shining example of how we try to find innovative ways of doing things that have otherwise proved more awkward before. Shane is excellent in his knowledge and his patience. He has been putting in some schemes, or they've been running around with the team have been putting in the schemes, but Shane is normally on site when these lines are painted. So for instance, in Epping Forest, there was a scheme that needed to be put in, and we were having people from the far side of London deciding in the middle of lockdown to go for a walk in Epping Forest. Now, of course, the various parks and the car parks were closed. So they were parking on the verges, bunging up the roads for emergency services, which is not, of course, acceptable. So we ended up putting at very short notice, we put in a scheme of double red lines to get rid of these fools is the only answer in my personal opinion. I gather that Shane was talking to somebody who'd come from Cambridge because he wanted to go for a walk. I mean, really, right in the middle, about April, May. And it's just beyond belief that people can understand that they can park anywhere they like just because they want to go for a walk. And we've had other problems as well, the same sort of thing. We've put in a number of double red line schemes. Most members, I hope, will know, or all members will know where they've got them in their own village. We've got one in Mersey. We've had to look at Hatfield Forest, Epping Forest, and I believe there are a couple of other small ones. But red lines are familiar in London for most those people who see them in London, but we haven't really used them in the shires before. And it has been a really useful tool to be able to address some of these problems that have been caused by COVID and really rather antisocial drivers who need to think again about A, what they're doing in the first place, and B, where they're parking their vehicles. So there's been a lot of extra work done this year rather. And the other thing that has been in some areas, we've had schemes, of course, that were agreed last year, but were then advertised and consulted on. Some of them got slightly delayed. Actually, they've run into some of the, what I'd call the COVID red schemes, which have confused the locals somewhat. And they've had one major scheme that was approved last year to help in a seaside area. And then only a matter of a month later, they're getting a new set of red lines. And they're thinking, what's all this about? So it's caused some confusion, but the workload that has been put in by Trevor and his team has been really quite excellent, and we've had some as a result of it. It's pleasing to see that it's working, the system is working. So on that note, if there are no other comments, please show your hand if you want to make one. Let's move on to the finance report with Richard, please.
Mr. Chairman, I think it's myself and Lou have put together this report. It's been a particularly challenging year, hasn't it, from a financial point of view. Report's there with you, and some things to note as we go through. We'd normally expect to reserve a little bit of our budget just in case we have a bad winter, and I think it's fair to say that the COVID issue has been sort of 3 times as bad as we could have expected for that. Accompanying the report there is a table, and there's a couple of points to highlight for you. There's a few yellow squares you'll notice on there. The projected outturn at the moment is a very, very worst case scenario, and I don't expect it at the close of the year to reach anything like that 861 that we've mentioned there. More realistic estimate at the moment, as we sit here, is about 600,000 that we'd need to take out of our reserve, should all things be equal. Now, last year we were fortunate in putting nearly 300,000 into the reserve, so we can count that as part of that 600,000. And this year we would probably think about making a little bit over our budget in normal circumstances. And for the last few years we've made about 250,000 over the top. So with those 2 years we've nearly made up that deficit. So what else does that 861 comprise? The first yellow block against the CEO's supervision row there, we've claimed for some furlough payments. We had some of our civil enforcement officers furloughed for a time, and if we do manage to get the repayment from government for that, that will go into there. On the premises and TRO maintenance, there's a couple of yellow blocks in there. That includes the funding for the red lines that we've put in. The Epping Forest work alone was over £100,000 worth of work to put in. And of course, we'll recoup some of that over time in issuing penalty charge notices and making a bit of additional income from that. But that's work that we would normally put in from our reserve funds in any event. A little further down, just before the next block, in our supplies and services, in there we'd include some savings, I suspect, from not having issued PCNs. So we would have budgeted at the start of the year to issue as many PCNs as normal. But for each one of those, we pay a levy to the patrol, who's the joint committee that supports the adjudicator. And we won't be paying that, of course, for the PCNs we haven't issued, a little saving there. And for the cases that we would have normally expected to register at the traffic enforcement centre, There's a levy on each one of those, which we wouldn't have to pay. So those will probably be a small saving. The penalty charge amounts in the next block down. We've removed entirely all the PCN income from April through to June as a result of that. But of course, we were still collecting on some old cases during that, and we did manage to get going again slightly before the end of May, as it happens, and part of June. We were issuing penalties again, and there'll be a little bit of income from there, but we have adjusted down the total significantly from what we expected there by a few months. And of course, residence parking, we had 3 months where we'd given a moratorium on payment, which will cause us a cash flow issue in this year of moving 3 months worth along, which will effectively mean the last 3 months of the year will fall into next year now, and that's not a full proportion, but a small number of renewals that would happen towards the end of the year. And of course, any visitor permit stays just didn't happen, and we'll never ever get those again. And the same is true of pay and display on the next row, which we've adjusted down because those stays will never ever happen. That's an opportunity cost. So whilst it looks like an enormous black hole there, the reserve is such that it can support us, and the amount at the moment that I suspect is going to be the shortfall is such that we won't have to affect any of the projects that we've got ongoing. And indeed, when we talk about projects, some of those have been delayed slightly and probably will fall into a new financial year as well. So the worst case isn't by any means as bad as it looks there. And I hope as well, we still don't know quite what's around the corner, do we? Looking further north in the country, you can see that some places haven't even got going again from the first wave yet. So all things being equal and wishing us all a safe winter, I hope to bring that back a little bit more towards break even. I don't know if Lou has anything else to add to the first part that I've failed to mention there.
No, I think you've covered it all.
Okay, so that's where we are. That's a very worst case summary of where we are, and I suspect as we go through and reconcile things, then it will move back in towards and beyond only £600,000 deficit, which I say we'll be able to cover from our reserves.
Thank you very much, Richard. It's a good example. It's that sprung out for me at the beginning of COVID, which we mentioned at the last meeting, I know, was the very swift movement to all those people with permits, who of course are all connected via My Permit. And they were therefore able to very quickly receive the information that they were going to have no, sorry, my door's been knocked, that they were going to have no permit, or rather an extension of the permit for 3 months. Did we get any complaints about that, Richard?
We've gained a few appreciative comments that we're able to do that. I mean, that was the time when people were starting to work from home and we're trying to make other arrangements around, and yeah, we got a few good comments. Of course, it has, as you say, produced as a community that we can talk to directly, as all of our permit holders are online, and those who provided an email address to, we can talk to directly and tell them exactly what's been going on.
Yeah, that's it's been really good news. I'm going to have to excuse myself for 30 seconds. Sorry, I'm busy at chairing a meeting. I'm sorry, I've got nobody else here. I'm having to deal with a meeting. I'm afraid. Sorry. Sorry about that. I'll have to tell them to disappear and come back another time. Right, thank you very much for that, Richard. It's testament to everything we've been trying to do over the last nearly 10 years, that has brought us into a state where we have surplus that we can fall back on, and where we don't have a great hit on what we're doing. What we would like to do, of course, takes a small hit, but it looks as though we will be able to pick up on that again in relatively short order. Are there any comments on the financial situation from members? No, that's looking Councillor Van Dalken.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, Richard, for your explanation of this. I note that the current forecast, the outturn, is due to be more than last year, despite obviously us having, or you're having much lower income. One of the main increases is supplies and services. Is that £125,000? Anything in particular? A car, perhaps?
Yes, you're exactly right. We've bought some extra cars. One of the consequences of the emergency and the way we've tried to protect some of our offices is to have everybody patrolling individually from their own car. We purchased 2 extra cars last year, and I think there's or was it 3 last year and an extra 2 this year. So those will show in the accounts against supplies and services, and you're exactly right. We tried to protect the staff as well by where they feel unsafe from issuing. If somebody doesn't practice social distancing correctly, they can retire to a safe distance, and we'll be able to send the PCN by post. There's a way of doing that process for that already. So yes, we've tried to protect the people as much as we possibly can. We've acquired a few extra vehicles, and yeah, I think that's the best we can do, really.
Thank you very much.
Okay, well, we'll need to move on therefore to, if everybody's happy with that, Councillor Danvers.
Thank you, Chair. I was led to believe that there was a possibility of updating some of the machines that take the money so that they could actually be card friendly as well. And if we are talking about COVID, obviously people are very sensitive about touching machines and anything else. Is it still in the programme to actually update the machines that take money? To make them well, not just to make them cashless, but to make it easier for people to actually pay by card.
I'd recommend My Permit is the way to go for that, and we've seen an enormous swing towards people using the phone-based system there, online and by text, as the emergencies progressed and people have got back to shopping and being in town. We've certainly seen an enormous switch over and above what we had in Colchester previously towards the use of My Permit, and that's the way we're recommending people to go. Of course, it's your own phone that you use there. Not everybody has that, of course, as a means to communicate with us. And in car parks, of course, it's the asset of each of the districts. But I think as part of some of the projects, we'll look at the way that's being done. We're also looking at putting more cashless machines. I was talking to Trevor just before this meeting, actually, about replacement of some of the machines in the Epping Forest area that we've got and on Harwich Quay with a wave and pay type facility as well. Those you have to have a very good local connection to make them work correctly.
Could Harlow be part of that scheme?
Yeah, we've definitely got My Permit in Harlow already, and we'll look at that as part of the projects if that's one of the things that you'd like to promote. That's one of the things we can do. Technology has moved on quite a lot in the last couple of years. We've access to different types of machines now as well.
Right, thank you. There are lots of other future ideas that we've got, I think, and will be coming forward in future meetings. We're not in the position of using cash anymore in many respects, and some people are. That's true. We need not to cut it out completely, but of course, a few years ago, we were the majority of cash, huge cash collection costs as well, and the possibilities of damage to machines where inappropriate people were trying to remove the cash. We're now very much outside that, and we have moved forward quite significantly. And that has made a big difference as well to the way that we do things. My Permit being key to all of that. and of course all the permit schemes. So let's move on to the annual report. Richard, again.
Yes, this is just to confirm that we've now published the annual report online. There's a link in the report there that you can go and have a look on the website and see what we've been doing. Of course, we publish this in a number of parts now, so you don't have to wait until now to read it all. Our operational report in 2 parts before this, and finally the annual report has concluded it. We have to produce that and publish it within 6 months of the end of the financial year, which would be today. So we've done that, and I'd recommend you go and have a look at that. And our video and things are linked from within that, and talking about some of the other bits and pieces that we've been up to. And very soon we'll be moving on to produce the first part of this year's operational report, which will produce chapter 1 of next year's annual report.
That's the way we do it nowadays. Working very well as well. Award-winning. It's good to see. Any comments on that item? No, thank you very much. And surprise, surprise, we're back with Richard for the obstructive.
Mr. Chairman, sorry, can we just
close to my house?
Sorry, can we just take a quick show of hands that everyone's happy that they've noted the details provided in the annual report, just so we've got.
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah, that's lovely.
All those in
Thank
favour?
you.
Yeah,
Unanimous. Brilliant.
Okay. Richard, over to you on the obstructive parking.
Thank you very much. Yes, obstructive and footway parking. Footway parking particularly. I mentioned the last virtual meeting that we had that there was likely to be a consultation to be held by a government over the summer. And hey presto, here it is. In the report there, you've got a link to a consultation document, and I'd encourage you all to go and have a look through that. There's 40 questions or so within it, spanning a wide range of topics and subjects, and depending on how you answer, will open the door to other questions about costs and things. So NEPP is going to put together its submission on there, but individuals can also have your own say. You might remember some time ago that I reported the Transport Select Committee first had a look at the issue of footway parking outside London. Of course, London's covered by their own footway parking complete ban, and there you can't park on the footway unless it says you can. That's pertinent to something that I'll come to in a minute. Outside London, you can park on the footway unless it says you can't. Now, the Transport Select Committee looked at this because they'd been approached by a number of people and a number of campaign groups, Guide Dogs for the Blind, and various other people, and people using wheelchairs, and people with children. You can imagine the sorts of issues that you'd have if you were confronted with a vehicle completely blocking the footway and you have to move out into the carriageway to get around it. The Transport Select Committee took up this and came up with 3 recommendations of their own. And in the consultation here, there are also 3 recommendations. Strangely enough, they've almost been copied in word for word. Those 3 recommendations, well, the first one is to make it a bit easier to manage the traffic regulation order process. Now, the first report that you received today was all about that, and you'll be aware that behind that sits a very cumbersome, complex, and quite costly process, which is set out in legislation. We've got some process regulations that tell us how to do all of that, and it's really overly complex for what it is. And then behind every yellow line and parking bay sits another set of legal documents, which are the regulations themselves. So you've changed what people can do on the highway, which was why it was so important that we were talking about that the couple in Manor Road there. We're actually changing what people can do on the highway. So one of the recommendations was to have a look at this TRO process and make it easier to ban parking on the footway. That's where it was leading to, but they've had a look at the whole process, and there's another group of alpha reports that have gone to the Department for Transport, and a little study that they've put forward, which is looking at the process and suggesting some better ways to do it. And also, whilst we've been having the emergency in place, we've been able to take a bit more of a shortcut process, publish a little bit less of the public notice details in the newspaper, but refer people to a map online. And we don't now have to, at the moment, because of the COVID restrictions, have to put a notice up on the curbside. All those things we're allowed to do at the moment, and there's some temporary emergency legislation through to about April. which allows us to take these shortcuts. And the proposals in this alpha report is to take that forward and make that law further through. So you'll be able to go and view a map online. More people, it says, will have the opportunity of doing that, because you'll be able to get to all road users and not just those people who happen to notice that notice on street. It also means we can reduce a bit of the plastic that we use on street. It's a cable tie that ties a piece of laminated paper, laminated plastic. Again, we'd be able to forego all of that if we're able to just do our advertising on the internet. So that was option one, and we're all for that, streamlining that process. Now there are two other options, and both of these relate to the footway parking thing, but they're called options 2 and 3. They're really two options to do with footway parking. The first of these was to decriminalise, so that means change from the police's control, either shared or completely, to local authority control. So our civil enforcement officers would have the power to issue a penalty charge notice to somebody who parked where we allege a contravention is occurring on the footway. So there's a bit of an option to that, I suppose. We wouldn't have to issue one in every circumstance. We could have exceptions to it. And of course, we've been discussing our policy over the last 4 or 5 meetings, and I've included it again here as to the way that we might set those exceptions up to a global ban. Of course, the other issue with the global ban is if you move all the cars currently parked neatly and tidily on the very wide footways out into the carriageway, that could cause some unintended consequences, and we might have just the same problem but referred against the curbside, where we'd then be chasing people up and down the road with additional yellow lines required. It says you can't park. Unless it says you can't park, then people probably will. So option 3 was the total ban. So the second of the 2 footway options, the total ban on footway parking, as it would be in London. And there you'd have to put a sign up if you were going to permit parking of some sort on a footway. So there's a bit of extra sign clutter in that. And we think that's probably maybe a step too far. We'll refer all this parking out onto the carriageway, and doesn't really fit quite with what happens in rural areas, housing estate areas, and some urban areas where a car is longer than a house, and various of the other issues that there isn't really enough space in some of the roads. So put all that together, what do we get? Unfortunately, they've not gone to the full extent of saying all obstructive parking. They've just gone to obstruction on the footway. That is at least a start, and my submission will ask them to look again to consider all obstructive parking. And if we consider obstructive parking on the carriageway as well, that could be junctions and junction protection, and would go some way to alleviating this requirement for us having to put yellow lines 50 yards around each junction just so you can see to get out. Of course, it's unlawful for you to park there at the moment, but a police officer would have to come and catch you doing that. And of course, we know that police resources are very stretched at the moment, and probably best use elsewhere. So we've got a middle ground, really, which is our recommendation and the way our policy has been produced, and so I've attached that for our information. Alongside all this, of course, we'll keep the communications going, and we'll see just where it gets up to at the closure of the consultation here. I've been in consultation with a few of our other colleagues around the country, as far away as Cornwall, and we're all sort of deciding on the same sort of middle ground that we think would be a good compromise. So yeah, a flying summary through it all for you there.
Thank you, Richard. I would like to point members in the direction of page 35 of the agenda, and in the middle you'll find a link there. So if you're looking at your electronic version of it, you can just click on the link, and you can also make your presence felt by responding to this consultation. I personally am very much in favour, and I've been putting forward for about 3 or 4 years now, that we have recognised that not being able to enforce obstruction is a real pain in the backside. Passing the buck to the police just doesn't work for all the right reasons, because they're busier doing other stuff. Getting somebody who's going to park right on a junction on the verge, for instance, that doesn't have double yellow lines, we can't enforce. So we have to put the double yellow lines down. Now we're painting the blooming streets yellow all over the place just to deal with the idiots who are parking on junctions. We should be able to do that. A CEO has enough skill and enough training to know whether it's causing a blooming nuisance and stopping any vehicle from being able to get a good visibility on a junction, for instance, which is why my personal belief is that we should be able to enforce all obstruction, bearing in mind, of course, as we've mentioned before, that every time a CEO issues a ticket, it includes photographs added to that, not directly to the ticket, but photographs that go into the back office, so that if somebody says, whinge, 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 I wasn't doing this really, honest, etc., we have the photograph, and it's quite obvious that somebody has parked antisocially, and it is not a thing that we should be bothering the police with, really. We have put in a number of restrictions over the years that have probably made the ability of motorists to park easily and simply a little bit more difficult. I'm afraid that's part of the modern age, where people are treating themselves as being entitled enough to go and park anywhere they like, and hence the problems that we had, as mentioned before, in Epping Forest, for instance. So I would very much encourage all members to go and put in their 6 pennyworth in this consultation, and see if we can get it, see if we can start enforcing obstruction parking without having to waste police time. I think that's all we've got on that particular report, isn't it? So if all members are happy, unless people have got comments, please raise your hand. Councillor Van Dalken, thank you.
Yes, I'm going to go online and make my comments, and I feel, as I think we all do, that we don't want to go down the London route. It just wouldn't be right, and indeed then the demands on the time of the officers would be quite extraordinary. So I think and from what you're saying as well, or what Richard was saying, semi-rural authorities have the same view. So I'm hoping that this will go through quite quickly and easily.
Thank you. Councillor Eek.
Yeah, I just feel that we should also make PCs and TCs aware of this consultation, because they, particularly places like Saffron Walden Town and Dunmow, equally have a role to play in, responding to this consultation from a grassroots level. So I think if we can encourage all our PCs and TCs to follow this link, I think it would be a very good idea.
Yes, I think it's a bit of more the merrier. Thank you very much. Okay, on that basis, if there are no other comments, then can I have a show of hands, please, to everybody in favour of just having noted this report? Thank you very much.
Unanimous.
Unanimous. Okay, so there we are. We're looking at that's all matters. I've got no AOB specifically. I just want to very briefly mention the stuff that we're going to be looking at in probably in the next few meetings. You'll hear about it, but considering the change really of some of the schemes that are inappropriate, as was mentioned earlier on when we were looking at the schemes, and where we need to modernize them. So for instance, there are a number of areas where we have 1 hour parking restrictions in the middle of the day or at any time of the day, it doesn't really matter, which were originally designed for dealing with the free parking that commuters think they could get around station villages or village stations, whichever way you call it. And that was causing a number of problems. We realized that the demographic has changed from point of view of both commuting, especially as a result of COVID, the way that people work out how they're going to park somewhere might be relating, or where they're going to work as well, because we have workmen in the centre of the place who will take the mick when it comes to 1 hour parking, and plenty of other people as well. And they will decide that they will go to work outside that time, and they also might know that the only time that the CEO is likely to be around is when the 1 hour parking is, and they know where they're going. So it doesn't help with the main aim, one of the main aims of the parking partnerships are to get compliance. We don't have compliance because A, the demographic is changing, and B, the people are choosing to do whatever they like, really, because they believe they're entitled to do so. And where it provides problems for waste collections and for emergency services, we can't really have that. So we're going to be looking, I would suggest, in a number of areas, probably starting with small ones, to see how it works, where it is appropriate, maybe to move people across to residence parking schemes, for instance. The difference there, of course, is that in many cases, residential areas where residents have enough parking off street, so they won't need a residence parking ticket at all. But for those few who do need maybe 3 cars in a two-car park house, and there are many of those around, they might need 1 permit out of 3. And most importantly, we can allow safe passage for emergency and essential vehicles. So it's something that will be coming in the future, I think. Are there any other small matters that anybody would like to bring up, any members would like to bring up that are pressing at the moment? Because our next meeting will be in December. Owen.
Just wanted to make a small point regarding the work programme. As councillors noted, you'll be able to see that we've currently got the different district and borough council venues still for the meeting venues. Now, just to avoid confusion, and as we're almost certainly going to be using remote meetings, certainly until the end of this municipal year, I'm proposing I'm going to take those venues off there, just so any members of the public who are looking at those papers online don't get confused and then try to turn up to a meeting which isn't actually where it says it's going to be.
Yes, I think if we make it very clear that it's going to be an online meeting and that the appropriate link will be shared in due course, then that makes complete sense. Councillor Van Dalken.
Yes, I agree. I got a bit of a shock when I was looking at that last page, and I thought I should have been in tendering this morning. So
yeah, well, I've just been at a different meeting about aviation, and they're talking about personal flying transport, and I'm thinking, oh, what madness. Cassie.
Very different subject, I'm afraid. Off-street parking. Is there a separate off-street parking meeting?
No. The off-street parking meeting, we've effectively amalgamated, or we're using, I can't remember what the word is, Richard, remind me. It's not as there used to be, but there isn't now.
There used to be a subcommittee of this group which talked about off-street parking as a committee. We dissolved that, and it's now directly a service level agreement with the lead authority. So we have a series of meetings. I had a meeting with your officer, Ms. Howells, there about 3 weeks ago, something like that, and we set those in train again to take place offline here.
Right, so there are regular meetings to discuss off-street parking, officer to officer. Okay, are there any minutes from those meetings issued?
No, that's not a formal meeting in that return. Depends on how the meetings are run. The Braintree ones are run with minutes. The Colchester one isn't. The Uttlesford one hasn't had minutes. So yeah, it depends on how they're being run.
Thank you very much. I'll take that offline. Thank you.
And of course, just as a reminder, we only have 4 of the partner authorities who have off-street parking managed by NEPP, and that Epping Forest and Tendring do not. They manage their own. And hence the change from being all in to, or part of all in, to direct service level agreements. Fine, thank you. Owen, do you want to discuss it? I think we've pretty much discussed this, haven't we?
Yep, I've got nothing else to add to that. So as long as members are happy to note that and signal your contentment with that work programme, that's all I'm.
Okay, everybody happy with that? just a quick show of hands to say thank you very much.
That's great. Thank you.
And on that basis, at 26 minutes past 2, we don't need to extend and have a break. Thank you very much for your attendance. And I look forward to seeing these, all the schemes that we've approved today get designed and consulted on in advance of lining in the next season. Very seasonal. Thank you very much indeed. And thank you to all the officers who've been joining in.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amir. Keep it cheerful as usual.